The Metro is a dangerous place. It's full of Nazis, red communists, monsters, radiation, and the fear of making a game that does not live up to the original Metro 2033. Does it succeed? Let's see. This is my review of Metro Last Light.
While the first game, Metro 2033, was an adaptation of a book by Dmitry Glukhovsky, its sequel, Last Light, is a completely original follow-up with no connection to the book's actual sequels, Metro 2034 or Metro 2035. Doing this when making films or TV shows is often quite dangerous, as the developer or filmmaker has nothing to follow except their own imagination, and can lead to unintentional bad work when making changes that don't make sense. The game is still telling Artyom's story, now living his life as a ranger after the discovery of the secret bunker D6 at the end of 2033, and the supposed destruction of the creatures called the Dark Ones. He is again called to action after discovering that one young Dark One has survived, the nuclear blast unleashed at the end of the original game. This young Dark One becomes important as he could be the key to understanding the link between humans and the Dark Ones. Artyom is then captured after cornering the small childlike creature, which leads to another adventure through the Metro as he uncovers a sinister plot to use D6 to spread a toxic virus, framing the Rangers and spreading fear and panic throughout the Metro. Does this setup pan out? Let's tunnel into the Metro yet again to find out.
The first thing I liked about Metro Last Light was the story, because it actually has one. I mean, not that the first one did not have a story, but this one has more of one. It adds more depth and character to the exciting world of Metro. I also like how the game has evil villains, threats, and an actual plan, not just the typical monsters you face, which all make a return from the first game, as well as some new ones, which mostly appear above ground. And I also like how these villains were actually memorable. They're not, even though they just had the cliched take over the world scheme. Last Light actually introduces boss battles, which the original did not have, really. You fight a giant plant monster, it kind of looks like the thing off Mario, PD Piranha, and then you fight a giant monster called the Rhino, which actually looks more like a gorilla in my opinion, and then finally you fight a radiation-infused bear towards the end of the game, and that battle kind of turns into a Zelda boss battle, kind of, where you run around and then you shoot its open weak point, and then it just wanders off after you defeat it. Supernatural elements also make a return, especially when Artyom is with Khan, odd name for an ally if you're a Star Trek fan. Khan's interesting because he's not the typical, everyone else hates the Dark Ones. He wants to study them, and that's like the point of the mission, first original mission in the game, where you have to find this Dark One, and he wants to study it, and then that thing comes into play a lot later on in the game, and it holds the key to understanding the humans and Dark Ones' pasts and how they're connected. Last Light definitely has more action set pieces than the original. And a lot of people criticized this when it first came out because the original one was more subtle. And this one has there's careening down a river of death on a raft where a bunch of fish monsters are chasing you. There's, fighting the gorilla rhino boss thing I talked about earlier. There's chasing and following a supposed ally through the streets as Nazis are trying to catch you and all that kind of thing. And it really sets it up and really builds up to the final boss, not really boss, but action set piece at the end where you're trying to defend the secret bunker D6 or destroy it if you're evil. And there's an amazing final mission there where you have to shoot guys. You just mow them down with flamethrowers and shotguns, rifles, miniguns, grenades, and then it's just epic, and then it's just explosive like that, and I loved it. Like the original game, there are some issues here. The compass, again, is just frustrating. I go that way, and then it points that way, then that way, then that way, and then finally I figure out I have to go up, and it just was, if you do a third game in this series, get rid of the compass and just have an arrow that points you, just like Halo and like The Last of Us, where it points you in the right direction. It's okay to have some exploration, but you have to push people forward. This is where I'm going to defend Call of Duty a little bit. It's a generic shooter, but at least it pushes you in the right direction when you're trying to play through it. It doesn't have you wandering around and trying to find some switch or whatever. it'll lead you to it, but then you can explore and find like, like the intel pieces that Call of Duty has. They need to fix this if they make a third game. It felt like the boss battles at times were a little bit confusing to defeat also, like the Rhino. I mean, what you did there was you were shooting at it, and then somehow I killed it. I'm not even sure what happened, and then it was just bashing into things. I guess that's how you defeat it. You bash into things and stun it, but it didn't explain that really. And that was a little bit frustrating. The bear boss also got a little bit frustrating because I didn't know what to do at first, and then all of a sudden I noticed there was a red glowing spot. I'm like, oh, this is a Zelda thing, kind of, where you have to use your weapons and shoot the obvious weak spot, as all Zelda bosses have. I also felt like the knockout button, if you're trying to be good, would get stuck sometimes, and you're supposed to be able to knock enemies out even if they see you, and sometimes they would see me and start shooting. I'm trying to knock them out because I want to get the good ending, and it just wouldn't happen. It would jam up and lock up, and I'd end up getting sent back to my last checkpoint because it wasn't clear enough, and it's not supposed to be like that. I mean, if you play through the whole game without really killing humans, you get a trophy or achievement, which is what I was trying to do. And then eventually, like halfway through my first playthrough, I just said, screw it. I'm just going to shoot everything because I'm sick of this sneaking around and then the button jamming when I'm trying to hit it. So they need to fix that, make it more responsive. Metro Last Light does make some great gains, but the things I just outlined really set it back, I think. They need to, if they ever make a third adventure in this series, they need to have an improved interface, a better navigation system, and then get rid of the two endings and just have one linear story, one linear path. I mean, and then you can have some exploration in between there. I mean, throw things in there and collectibles, but they don't need to be making you run all over the place trying to knock everybody out. You can have stealth and have it be linear, like, The Last of Us did it. What other games? Splinter Cell does it. Hitman does it. It can be linear, but still have exploration mixed in there. So for that, I'm giving it the same score I gave the first game, an 8.5 out of 10. While it's enjoyable and it's fun, it still needed to be up a little bit more. And seeing how the original game came out in 2010, this was 2013, they should have really upped that interface. I don't know why they stuck with the same one that they did in the first game. So if you like this, please remember to subscribe, like, and share.